There are 4 character classes in Dissidia NT. While every character belongs to a class, every character in that class have their own playstyles and strengths and weaknesses. This makes it hard to assign specific roles to the classes. Roles are more on an individual character basis. For example, even if both are Vanguards, if you play Firion the same way you would a Sephiroth, then you're not going to be particularly helpful to your team. Some people will say that there is a rock-paper-scissors relationship between the Vanguards, Assassins and Marksmen, but there are too many exceptions to actually call it a rule. A better way to view it is that Assassins are best at close range, Vanguards are best at mid-range, and Marksmen are best at long range. This does not mean that characters in those classes cannot have strong options at the other ranges. As a class, Specialists do not excel at one given range. They instead have special mechanics that allow them to become good at one or more ranges, but they tend to gravitate towards close to mid-range. The choice of HP attack can help a character overcome a weak range. For example, Meteor Rain will give Cloud a strong long-range option, and Holy will give Y'shtola a strong close-range option. Every character has at least one close-range HP attack and at least one mid to long-range HP attack. This table shows the numerical differences between the classes. There are of course exceptions to all these values, especially for the specialists. The line compares the movement speeds, including the exceptions. There is an even spread for the walk speeds. However, the dash speeds are more equal, apart from the assassins. To give a reference on how much a meter is, Mighty Strikes has a radius of 20 meters, and each ring on the minimap is 10 meters. Vanguards thrive at mid-range with attacks that have far reach or move them far forward. While they have average walk and dash speeds, they have the slowest dash startup in the game. Vanguards have the highest poise and interruption values, do high damage, have wide and far-reaching attacks, and have the longest wall splat distances, which makes them good at bulldozing and controlling the battlefield. All Vanguards have access to projectiles that can beat or trade with all classes apart from the Marksman. The Vanguard's big attacks are also their weakness. They have slow startup on their attacks, and their recovery is not held by their slow dash startup. Vanguards use their damage, reach and poise to dominate the lesser classes. You might think that Warrior of Light's shield would be for guarding, but he uses it more to smack his opponents and to fish with it. Warrior of Light controls the battle from the front lines by repositioning his opponents, parrying their attacks, and directing their hate towards himself. Garland starts off doing lower damage than the standard Vanguard, but should he manage to get to the second level of his passive, he deals a lot of damage. He is also very good at holding his opponents in place for his allies. Firion can do a lot of damage and lock down his opponents for a long time over a large area, but only if he's on the ground. He needs to choose his positioning wisely, because the immobility during his attacks leaves him very open to be hit. Cloud of Darkness is a very all-around Vanguard. The poison or charged attacks activates faster than the startup of any bravery attack, which makes her strong at close range versus assassins and specialists. The high projectile strength on charged uncanny beam makes her the only non-marksman that can trade with marksman projectiles. Cecil has 2 jobs he can switch between. In the Dark Knight job, Cecil is focused on grounded mid-range projectiles. In his Paladin job, he is focused on aerial close-range melee attacks. The ability to charge his attacks to increase his damage and adjust the timing gives Cloud a very strong offense and mix-up potential. Being able to dodge cancel the charge means that he doesn't have to commit to an attack. Even if Sephiroth has a slow dash speed, his attacks have a very long reach. Hitting his just input dash cancels allows him to keep up his pressure. Vayne can get a wall splat from almost any angle, though his attacks lack the width that Vanguards usually have. Assassins want to get up close and personal with their opponents. They have the fastest walk and dash speeds and can jump twice in the air, which gives them more mobility than the other classes. Their attacks do less damage and have shorter range than the Vanguards, but in exchange, they have the fastest startup. Most assassins can cancel their recovery of a whiffed neutral bravery attack into the same attack, and those that can't have other ways of keeping up the pressure. Their projectiles do low damage and are overall weak. Assassins are good at chasing down opponents or blindsiding them, but can do little against opponents that are able to keep them out. Kane has good mid-range options with Lance Burst, Puncture, Charge Tornado and Charge Cyclone. He can combo a Charge Cyclone into an Impulse Drive. Locke gains better damage on his attacks and better items from his unique EX skill by attacking opponents that are not locked onto him. This encourages blindsiding people, but Locke is by no means weak from the front. Squall needs to hit his triggers in order to do damage. Solid Barrel and Gnashing Fang are good at holding his opponents and do very high damage. Lightning Shot and Devastating Slug give Squall good mid-range options. Zidane has good moves for setting up his teammates and for setting up his own mix-ups. His HP attacks also have a buff or debuff on hit. Kuja's bravery attacks give him a little longer reach than the other assassins. His glide makes it easier to get a wall splat. Kuja's kit is more built around supporting. Tidus's dash attacks give him even more mobility and good range. He can adjust the timing of the attack of up and under and leap and launch to catch people, and he can also cancel them before the attack. Jax only has close range options. He can get a little more range due to that his neutral attacks can still chain even if they whiff. He can use Quick Block to handle opponents that try to attack him from outside his range. Lightning uses her Commando paradigm up close and her Ravager paradigm from a distance. While her projectiles do low damage, most of them allow her to combo into her melee attacks. Noctis' arsenal allows him to use a variety of attacks. His warp gives him more mobility and a way to approach from mid-range. Marksman use a variety of projectiles to attack from long range. While they have the slowest walk and dash speeds, Marksman also had the fastest dash startup and the highest jump height. Having the lowest poison interruption values, combined with long startup on their attacks, make them weak up close. As they are entirely built around projectiles, Marksmen have no melee attacks, but in exchange, the projectiles have higher projectile strength and are overall better compared to the other classes. Marksmen want to stay outside the other classes' ranges, but still stay close enough to contribute to the fight. While most of Emperor's attacks have a long duration, they are either slow or do not have that long of a range. Thus, he needs to position himself more towards the mid-range. If Golbez manages to hold on to his Shadow Dragon, then he can be a force to be reckoned with. However, holding on to it is not always easy, and losing it is a big nerf. Terra has access to a wide variety of projectiles, some of which are among the best of those types. Kefka achieves his trickiness by being able to charge his attacks, and his attacks having some unconventional properties. In combined form, Rinoa can place Angelo with certain attacks. Angelo can rush towards the target on command. In Angel Wing form, Rinoa gains very high damage at the cost of HP and not being able to use Angelo. Half of Ultimesia's moveset is about holding down the opponent with multiple projectiles. The other half is about knocking them back with a single hit. She does below the standard damage until she gets to the second level of her passive. Shantoto starts off by shooting big projectiles to zone and deal damage. When enraged, she is more focused on holding down her opponents for her teammates with multiple hit projectiles. Most of her HP attacks also apply strong debuffs. Pistola is a support character. Most of her attacks apply debuffs. Her HP attacks, however, are not that effective at dealing HP damage. Ace is the standard marksman. The only thing he lacks is a search type bravery attack, but he is the only marksman with a melee attack. Specialists can be viewed as a mix of the other classes. They all have close range, mid-range and long range options, but they do not excel at one range in the same way the other classes do. Their walk speed is between the assassins and the vanguards, and their dash speed is only very slightly faster than the vanguards. Specialists deal low bravery damage. Their strengths instead come from unique mechanics that will permanently or temporarily increase their damage and abilities. The increased damage for the powered up modes is shown in the values in the parentheses. In his base job, Onion Knight's effective ranges are close range and long range, but he is overall weak. In the ninja job, he is an assassin with very high damage. In the sage job, he is a marksman with good glide capabilities. For all jobs, sprint gives him very good mobility. Bart's effective ranges are close and mid-range. He can be seen as a mix between an assassin and a vanguard. He starts off weak, but once he starts mastering jobs, he becomes a powerhouse. The effects of all job masteries are very good. X-Death's Berserker mode is focused on bravery. This is the mode he wants to be in when he is close to his opponents. Nullifier mode is focused on EX skills. This is the mode he wants to be in when he is not close to his opponents. Hexa mode is focused on debuffing. Unless he has used this mode's unique EX skill, it is not worth being in this mode. Vaughn's bravery attacks are overall weak, apart from their startup, which is only slightly slower than most assassins. His best range is close range, but his choice of HP attacks can make him a threat at other ranges as well. Ramza is a Vanguard assassin mix. When he uses Shout, he gains the strengths of both. The first attack of his melee attacks have the speed of an assassin, while the second hit has the reach of a Vanguard. Ultima gives him a strong long-range option as well. Galvanize should not be a priority as its effects are not that big.